I'm so pleased to welcome Joe Wicks, aka the body coach, to the podcast.
Of all the things I've achieved in life, I think growing lovely, caring children that are kind is the greatest thing we can achieve. Being a parent, you're not given a rule book or a manual kind of how to do it, but I'm trying to use my past experiences as a kid growing up and trying to become a better parent. My mum and dad had real mental health issues. My dad was a heroin addict, a drug addict from a very young age. So like that, you can imagine the chaos of living with that. And then my mum also had extreme OCD and she cleaned the house up 4 times a day. She had eating disorders and anxiety and things. So like, I was living in an environment that wasn't great for a 6-year-old kid. That's been the biggest challenge to me, like being a patient parent. I'm a 36-year-old man with phone addiction and I'm suffering bad. Like, I've got it bad and it affects my life. It affects my relationship with my kids. I really, really want men to talk. It's so important that we do, because once you realise you're not alone, we all feel the same. We all find it difficult.
Hello and welcome to the Dadvengers podcast, sponsored by Tonka, because being tough is all about getting out and playing. My name's Nigel Clark and I'm founder of Dadventures and host of this wonderful parenting podcast where we explore different aspects of parenting and hone in on the dad point of view. But it's not just about the dads. Mums, grandparents, carers, soon-to-be parents, we want you involved in the conversation too. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, please, please, please subscribe. It's so important because we can only continue to have important conversations like this if we can prove you're out there listening, and subscribing is the best way to let us know. So let's talk, let's laugh, let's share the things we find difficult and become the type of dads we really want to be. Today's guest has been a health and fitness enthusiast for many years and has been sharing his exercise and recipe videos online for just as long. However, during the pandemic, he shot into the limelight when he went online to help parents with the task of teaching PE at home. Since then, his videos have had over 100 million views and he's received an MBE for his work. If that wasn't enough, he's also a best-selling author, having sold over 4 million books. The thing is, by far his favourite job is being dad to his 2 young children. I'm so pleased to welcome Joe Wicks, aka the body coach, to the podcast.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me as a guest, and I'm looking forward to our chat because I do love being a parent, and I you know, kids can be hard work, but I also get a lot of joy from them. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you about the chaos and the ups and downs of being a parent.
Yeah, dude, it is. It's one of those things. Every day is different, but I love the fact that every day is different. It challenges me in new ways, and I think you like being challenged as well, right?
Yeah, of course. It's ups and downs, and I've got like 2 under 4. Sorry, I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, and obviously I've got one on the way. So although they're nutters and it's chaos, I still want more. Do you know what I mean? So I miss that early stage, that baby stage, because they grow up so quick. But yeah, they crack me up, man. I mean, they're always fighting, but they do make me laugh, and I do. Of all the things I've achieved in life, I think growing lovely, caring children that are kind is the greatest thing we can achieve in life, you know?
Yeah. So you said you've got another one on the way. I've got another one on the way too. When's yours due?
Oh, congratulations, mate. You're going for the hat trick too. Yeah, mine's due in September the 3rd. So we've got, another couple of months to go. So through summer, just sitting tight now. But again, it can come at any point, right? Because now you're in that kind of area where like, it can come a few weeks before, so you can't rely on it being September, but it might be sooner.
Yeah, totally. But the thing that I noticed most about what you said is that I don't think 3's the end for you. I think you've got some more that you're planning that you want to do.
When I see families, I go to obviously like schools and I visit I do like workouts around the country, do the PE with Joe on tour. And I see a family, like the mum and dad, and then like 5 kids in high order. I just think it's awesome. I just think it looks fun. And although it is crazy having kids and it's stressful, I just like the idea of a big family. So me and Rosie, we both think we're going to have at least 4. We're going to try, obviously, hope for 4. But who knows? Maybe 5. Who knows? Never know what's going to happen. But I do love it. And she loves being a parent too. So I think together we do visualise having a big family.
Did you always want to be a dad from a young age?
I used to think I was going to be a dad really young because my mum had me very young. She was 17 when she had my brother Nicky and 19 when she had me. And I always had this vision that I'd have a kid at like 24, 25. But when I got to that age, I was nowhere near ready. I actually ended up having a kid. I was 32 when I had my first child, which felt like the right age for me. And yeah, I mean, I'm loving it. I'm loving the journey. It is a journey, and I'm constantly learning. And I always think being a parent, you're not given a rule book or a manual kind of how to do it, but I'm trying to use my past experiences as a kid growing up and trying to become a better parent and learn to, just treat my kids differently and give them a nice, stable home life.
Yeah, you say about using your experiences that you've had as a child when you're parenting, and we're going to get deep into that in a minute. But have you found it hard to adjust to being a parent?
I think I found it challenging in certain respects. Like, I'm quite a naturally impatient person. And obviously when I was a kid, my mum and dad, it was very like, there wasn't much tolerance. It was quite snappy, quite a confrontational environment. A lot of shouting, a lot of doors getting slammed. It was quite aggressive in that sense. Not physically, but verbally. We shouted at each other a lot. We used to scream and shout. And so by default, that is probably my reaction to certain things, like being stressed on a plane or when I'm cooking or when I'm in a car, like to scream and shout and walk out and run out the room and slam the door. But I've had to really retrain myself to think differently and respond differently. So that's been the biggest challenge to me, like being a patient parent. I'm very loving and kind and caring, but being patient, like especially when I've got things on my mind, I'm working and I'm stressed, like I find it hard to react calmly, but I'm learning to do it. And it does become a thing. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. So yeah, that's been the biggest challenge. And I'm just lucky that Rosie and me, we parent in a similar way. We want to be kind, patient parents as opposed to like shouting and screaming and rowing with each other all the time, because I just don't want that energy and that confrontation in my life. I had that growing up as a teenager, as a kid. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest lesson I'm learning, I think. Yeah,
it's a really difficult one. And I think men particularly, because I think women might be a little bit more patient than we are. And I'm generalizing, but generalizing to make a point about men. I think we have to learn it. We have to learn it and take it on board more, especially after having kids, because we don't want to have those snappy reactions because it's unfair on our children, right? We understand things maybe quicker and better than them, and so we want things to happen quickly. And you're quite quite energetic. You're quite what's the word? I don't want to say manic, because you described your mum as manic, and it's not manic. It's like you have an energy and a flow, and you're just bouncy. You're a very bouncy person. So being that bouncy person, sometimes when someone else isn't as bouncy and as quick on something, slowing down for you is harder, right?
Yeah, it can be a challenge. Yeah, that's why obviously when you're parenting, you're hoping that you're both going to end up with similar like principles and kind of ways of dealing with things. But yeah, like my mum was very impatient with me, and obviously like was quite shouty and stuff. But I've learned I don't want to be like that, so I'm really working at it. But Rosie, as a parent, my wife Rosie, it's effortless for her to be calm and patient, and like during the night feeds, just so relaxed about things, whereas I would find it much more difficult, and I had to really work at it. And so yeah, it is like the biggest challenge we face, isn't it? Just trying to come down to a child's like level and talk to them with patience rather than just shout at them and scream, because that's like what I had as a kid. That's all I know. That's how I learned to be a kid, like, and that's how I think parenting was. But I definitely think you can, when you realise you can choose to react differently, it's quite a powerful moment, because then you realise, you know what, I haven't got to sound like my mum and dad. I can be someone else, and I can reply to my children differently, and I can work on that. And it is something that does take time and effort, I think.
Does Rosie ever try and slow you down and get you to that calmer place, being so bouncy and energetic?
Well, I think, me on social media, like, it is me, but it's also like a bit of a character. There are days where like I'm quite flat and I don't want to like be filming workouts and be running around doing burpees and sort of, wallop, leaning 15. Like that was kind of a character of me back then. But now I'm much more like, I have days where I'm really calm and chilled. I switch off. I mean, I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but I think as a kid, when I look back, like I was very distracted and couldn't focus on anything for long, so I was always jumping between different activities. Like I'd be doing karate for a month, then it was BMX and then roller skating. I was always, so yeah, my mind can stray kind of things, kind of in a way to kind of different, I can't focus, but I'm working on it. Like I think for me, the biggest source of frustration and stress and like irritability for me is my phone. So when I've got my phone in my hands, I'm reacting negatively, I'm getting stressed. Whereas when I don't have the phone and I'm just with the kids, just being with them. So what I've learned is that when I'm with them, just be with them, take the phone, put it in a drawer, leave it in the car when I go to the park, And I do have much better interactions, and my relationships have improved because of it.
Now, you brought me to the phone because I recently watched a documentary, and something that amazed me in that was that, like, you reply to the majority of your messages and DMs. You spend a lot of time with your fans and like talking to them and people who need help, and you're totally dedicated to that. But that takes a lot of time. You were talking there about spending up to 7 hours on a session when you were like replying to people on the phone and stuff. How do you balance that with family time? Because, you know, do you sleep, dude? Do you sleep?
Yeah, no, I prioritize sleep more than anything. It's the most important thing. And I think the documentary was filmed nearly 2 years ago. So it was like, it caught me at a moment that was really intense and overwhelming, because it was like therapy, like doing those filming days with my mum and dad and interviewing my brother and stuff. It's so emotional. And so the more I talked about mental health that time, the more DMs I was getting, the more content that was coming in where I was trying to reply, and it was overwhelming. And I did find it difficult, but I've got much better boundaries now. So specifically with the phone, because I'm addicted to connection and love and the relationship I have with people, the impact I have. That's what I'm addicted to. The device is just a channel for it, really. It's like the phone is addictive, but it's more that thing of like, I just love, all of my self-worth is linked to how many people I can help in a day. And so I've learned to just understand that I can't reply to everybody. I have to have days where I disconnect from my phone, and I'm learning to do that. And I've had like, you know, kind of not a digital detox where like I'm like disappearing for months on end, but a few days, like a weekend off my phone where I just leave it and don't turn it on and just spend time with the kids. So I didn't have balance back then. I've got balance today. Do you know what I mean? I've really worked on that.
Now, you say you've got balance now. Does that mean you've had therapy? Are you in therapy? Do you speak to people? What do you do?
I've just recorded a podcast for my podcast with Dr. Julie Smith, who's a psychologist. And I said, like, this is amazing just to talk to therapists, because I don't really spend time talking to therapists, because I'm quite upbeat. I don't really look back at the past. I'm quite a positive person. I just look forward. But going through that documentary making with BBC One, it was very difficult. Like, it opened up so many memories that I didn't have and I suppressed as a young kid. Because as children, we compartmentalize things and we block things out that we don't want to, that were quite difficult and traumatic. But no, I don't have a therapist. I mean, for me, like, exercise is my therapy, and, you know, going in the ice bath and like going out on my motorbike and having a day on the bike and things like that. Like, I do have ways of detaching my brain and my mind from the thoughts and all the kind of overwhelmingness of social media. But the biggest thing for me is exercise. Like, I always turn to exercise when I'm stressed, when I'm happy, when I'm sad. And so that's the message I promote so much, because I do believe in the power of exercise for our mental health.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in exercise for mental health. And you have always been that way. But in the early stages, and I might be making massive assumptions here, and please do tell me if I am, and you know, tell me to shut up. When I was watching the documentary, you massively got into exercise, and you talked about running to school, like 5 miles to school at like 13. And you talked about it being a distraction, a way to get away from the bad times at home, or the things that you were worried about at home. Do you think you ever still use exercise to distract you from anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's like been a part of my life from such a young age. Even before that age, I remember being like 6 or 7 years old, like in PE, just thinking, if I don't do PE, my day doesn't go right. I'm so disruptive, and I get angry and agitated because I was having like so much was going on. So basically, cut a long story short, my mum and dad had real mental health issues. My dad was a heroin addict, a drug addict from a very young age. So like that, you can imagine the chaos of living with that. And then my mum also had extreme OCD, and she cleaned the house like 4 times a day. She had eating disorders and anxiety and things. So like I was living in an environment that wasn't great for a 6-year-old kid. And yet, but when I went to school and exercised, I almost forgot about things, and I ran the aggression and the tension and the frustration out of my body. So yeah, that's in my DNA. Like, it has been like that from the start. And even today, like I said, like if I wake up in the morning and I'm a bit stressed or frustrated, or I'm overwhelmed by, you know, COVID or the war in Ukraine, all these emotions that get to me, because I'm an empathetic person. I think about things a lot. I exercise and release that feeling, and so yeah, like it's always my release for everything, good and bad.
Wow. It feels like you have begun to deal with things because of the documentary and over the last 2 years with the pandemic and learning that the things that you're addicted to, it feels like you've begun a process and begun a journey with your mental health. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, even like as an individual like myself, my thoughts have changed towards exercise, towards food and sleep and all these things because, I launched Lean in 15 like 7 years ago, and it was like fat loss, wasn't it? It was like body image. It was about losing weight. It was all about the body. But what I realized over the years is that actually what I really do is help people with their mental health. Their mind transforms and the body kind of follows, So I think my narrative around social media has changed. The titles of my book, I now just did a book called Feel Good Food. It's about feeling good. It's about the link between food and gut health and our minds. So yeah, like I'm on a journey, and I've like this new podcast series now. I've got Dr. Matthew Walker, a sleep expert, because I'm so passionate about talking about sleep, how important it is. He wrote a book called Why We Sleep. Dr. Julie Smith, she's a psychologist talking about anxiety, depression, like tools to overcome certain things. And another guest called Catherine Price, who she wrote a book called How to Break Up Your Phone, about phone addiction, because I'm a 36-year-old man with phone addiction. And I'm suffering bad. Like, I've got it bad, and it affects my life. It affects my relationship with my kids. So if I can use my platforms to amplify their message, and like even like this, like you reached out and I thought I want to talk because I know as a parent, as a dad, I feel like I have got a conversation that might be of value. So I always see value in sharing those messages. And I really do promote mental health a lot now. I think it's become something that we need to talk about because it's the thing that's affecting us all every day. Like we can have good days and bad days. You don't need to have like extreme depression and anxiety to say I've got bad mental health today. So I think, I'm always trying to share that message. So thank you for like giving me a chance to, reach your audience as well.
Dude, it's one of the ethoses of Dadventures is getting men and fathers in particular to talk about their mental health and to be more comfortable to talk about it. So one, thank you for coming and talk about it. You'll be helping other men who are listening to think about, hold on, I can talk with my partner about this. I can talk with my mates at the pub about this. I can talk with whoever it is they want to talk to and not feel like it's a stigma, not feel like, oh, I'm weak, not feel all of those things that people think when it comes to men talking about mental health. Do you think you would ever speak to a therapist?
Talking about that point you just said, which is so important, I'm so passionate about men talking. I actually went and shot a scene with a group of guys. It was a dads only talking therapy group in Surrey. They cut it from they cut the scene from the documentary, which is really sad. I really wanted it in there, but there's just so much to get in. It's difficult to get it all in. And like there was guys there, like really stable dads that were just going about their business and then became a dad. Guys became a dad, and the overwhelming feeling and stress that brought on, like they just literally went from being completely fine to having severe depression, suicidal thoughts, because they couldn't deal with being a parent. But they couldn't. The issue was they couldn't speak to their partner because they felt like my wife needs a strong, reliable partner right now. They can't have me saying, I can't deal with it. I don't feel connection with a baby. Like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I'm low. And so I really, really want men to talk. It's so important that we do, because once you realise you're not alone, we all feel the same. We all find it difficult getting woken up 4 times through the night and getting up and going to work the next day. It's really tough. But yeah, I'm definitely open to therapy. I have had therapy in the past, like a few sessions here and there as a teenager. There was a thing kind of called Al-Anon. It was like for families and things. So I've definitely had conversations, but I'm not someone to bottle things up. If I ever feel like I need to talk, I will, I'll get on the phone to a friend, or I'll go to the pub and we'll have a chat. And you realise when you're sitting with a group of 8 guys who are all dads, it's almost laughable just how similar our experience is. With relationships, with intimacy with your partner, with the kids winding you up, with like going to the first school parties with the kids, like all these things, like the small talk, like we all experience these same things. And I think the more you talk about it, the easier it becomes, because you realise you're not alone. Like it's like everyone's learning on the job, but the more dads you know and the more dad you talk to, the easier it becomes, I think.
You're really lucky. You've highlighted something for me there, and I'll come back to my original question. But you've highlighted that you're really lucky in the fact that you have a ready-made community around you, whether that's dads, whether that's mums, whether that's, your social media people contact you all the time. And That's like a little community that you have. It's a little Joe Wicks community. A lot of people don't have that. And they won't realise, and I didn't realise, I'm saying this from my own experience, when I had my first two, I wasn't really in any parenting groups. I wasn't doing that kind of thing. It wasn't until I started doing the baby club for Cbeebies that I really got into parenting groups and a baby club, and saw the benefits and saw how it helped the children, saw how it helped the parents. So I've come into that way later. How important do you think it is for parents to have community around them to talk to?
Just so you know, for the record, I watched the baby club about 4 times with Indy when she was little, and I still can't get the theme tune out of my head. Like, it's stuck. It's like one of those adverts for like washing up liquid. It's there forever. But no, I loved it, and I really like. I love G as well. Giovanna's amazing. I went on her Happy Mum, Happy Baby podcast a couple of times.
G's amazing.
But yeah, about community, I think it's so important. And for me, when I was talking about the dads, that's actually, so I've got a WhatsApp group called the Daddy Gusto Gang, because it's all my mates who are dads, and we were all like using Gusto at the time. We were like sharing our recipes. But it's amazing just to have someone to vent and just go, I'm having a tough time. The kids drive me mad, or, like just having that little bit of a communication channel where you can just like moan about things sometimes, because you realise actually everyone's going through it. And community could be like NCT if you're a new dad. It could be your own mates. It could be speaking to your mum and dad, or your best mate. But definitely don't be alone. Don't sit with those thoughts or feelings that you might be feeling, because sometimes parents are really natural and it's a real easy, effortless thing. Other people, it just takes a bit more work, but you can get there. But I do think communication and asking for advice is so important, because sometimes you feel like you're alone and you've got these feelings and thoughts that you don't want to open up. But once you do, you realise, actually, you know what? I'm not alone, and I can talk through this, and I can improve things and get better and stuff.
Talk about communication. When you were younger, your dad didn't communicate as well with you as you guys communicate now. You spoke before about him being a heroin addict. There were things that were unsaid, weren't there? And as a child, how did that affect you?
It really affected me as a child, and as a teenager, I was really angry, because when I was a little kid, I just thought, this is life, this is what it's like. But when I became a teenager and I could see my dad was constantly relapsing, and that instability of like, oh, he's clean and then he's using and then he's gone, he's in rehab, he's not here. Like, that's hard when you're a kid. You just want your dad to be there for you. And obviously emotionally, when you're using heroin, it numbs you of all ability to love. You don't love yourself. You don't love anything. You don't love anyone or anything. And so there's a lot of absence sort of thing. It's made me become a really kind, present, like stable figure in my children's life, because I don't want them to think I'm not going to be here when things get tough. Because I remember when things got tough and my mum and dad started arguing because he was relapsing, like he was gone and there was they didn't stick together. So I think that's really shaped me. It's made me want to be a loyal, faithful husband to my wife, and also be stable and be like a consistent energy in their lives, like consistently there for them. We're definitely shaped by our children. By our childhood. We're all shaped by our childhood, for good and bad. And so I'm now trying to teach my children in a different way and love them as much as I possibly can, so that they, I think I have broken the cycle of addiction and mental health. And I think if I can keep that stability in their lives, maybe they'll continue with their children in the future. So it's kind of a cycle, isn't it?
We are so happy to have Tonka as our sponsor this series. Basic Fun's Tonka collection is packed full of fun vehicles for kids who want to get out and get tough with their toys. So dads, you've got no excuse. Grab that mighty steel classic truck. It's time to head to the sandpit for some tough play. You speak about your kids. You love being with them. You love sharing time with them because you want it to be a different childhood to the one you had. Tell us some of the things that you guys get up to. What do you do together? What are your favourite times?
I mean, my favourite times really are travelling. Like, I love that I get to take them with me, because obviously my business is, I'm lucky in a sense it's digital. I can take my phone and my laptop and film videos and share content, so I can be away travelling. I like going on little trips with them. But on a more basic level, it's just simple things like going to the farm, like leaving my phone in the car and going to the farm and not taking a single photo. Or we've all got scooters, the micro scooters. We just go whizzing around the block. We've got bikes with bike seats on the back, so things like that, just simple things that don't cost anything, but are really wonderful, because you can ride somewhere, have a picnic, play around in the park, Richmond Park, wherever you may be, and and you've bonded and you've had a really amazing time. And I used to be like all about the content. So I'd be filming, oh, Indy, that's so cute, do that again, and sharing it. And I was obsessed with, I saw the world through a lens of social media content. And so I've now retrained myself to like not do that, just to be in the moment, you know, just to be present. And I don't need to take a photo and send it to my mum and her grandparents and stuff, because it's like you spend the time on the phone the whole time. So I think, yeah, doing things in nature, going for bike rides. We love going to the beach, and then we'll drive down to Brighton for the day. And all the things I've done as a kid, like the basic Cheshunt World of Adventures, you know, going to London Zoo, like all these things, it's just fun. Like, and I do love being with them. And I think the most important thing and the most challenging thing is finding the balance between work and wanting to be successful and have a career and want to be an entrepreneur and do great things, but not sacrificing too much time, like, because you can blink and they're 4 years old and it's like, they're like teenage. I mean, my daughter feels like a teenager. It's madness. So I think that the biggest challenge for parents is finding that balance between, being at work and being with them and being present.
Yeah, it's difficult to find that balance for all of those things. And there are two things that parents often feel that I want to ask you about. The first one is parent guilt, which you brought us onto nicely, because sometimes parents feel guilt about, oh, I'm working too much, I haven't seen my kids, or oh, I need to do this, or I can't take them on holiday, whatever it might be. And there's always that parent guilt. Do you ever suffer that?
Yeah, definitely. The most guilt around things is for me is like, being on the phone and not being with them and them having to say, Daddy, like looking up at me, look up and stuff. And that was an issue, but I've really got better at that. And I'm really, my screen time's way lower, like 3.5 hours a day maybe now, which is much better. And I just do the time with them. I really focus on them. Whereas before, I was trying to shoot videos and I felt bad, like always trying to just take videos and photos of them and stuff. So that's gone. But if I shout or swear or if I slam a door, then I feel terrible because I think I'm trying to be patient, but like you've pushed me too far and I've had a little moment. And I always think, kids don't hold on to these things. I was shouted at all my life and I still love my mum. Like she loved me, she shouted at me, but I think it's that thing of you feel terrible, but it's okay. As long as you acknowledge it and you apologise. I always say to my kids, like, I'm really sorry I shouted at you and I'm just trying to do this recipe and I'm trying to film it. I'm so sorry I raised my voice. So they learn that you can make mistakes and you can apologise. But that's for me the biggest thing. But I think a lot of people have guilt around, exercising, going to the gym, taking time out and like being away from the wife and the kids or the partner. And you should never do that, because I always say to Rosie, like, if you want to go and have an hour and go and sit in the park, or you want to go up and have a workout or go for a walk, do it, because you're going to be a healthier, happier mum when you come back. So I think it's having that balance of encouraging your partner to also take time out, because I mean, it's tough. Like, it's really tough raising kids and being with them all the time. And so I always say, like, no matter how hard I work in a day, Rosie being a parent to 2 kids all day on her own is harder. And so it's allowing your partner and yourself to have time out. You know what? I just got to go and do a half an hour workout in the garden. I've got to smash myself, do a kettlebell workout or something, because you come back into that living room or that kitchen and you're calmer and you're a better person for it. And I always repeat that message, because a lot of people just exercise for the weight loss and things, but actually it helps your relationship so much.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a question. We've been asking for questions, and you've brought us to one of the questions that someone asked. Resolve to Play sent in a question, and it was this. It was, you're an incredibly busy person, but you still find time for your hobbies, e.g. motorcycling. How important do you think it is for parents to have hobbies and create that time for yourself? And I just wanted to highlight that you've kind of answered that question right now by saying, yeah, parents, you need that time, because that's the self-care that means you can parent better, right?
Some of the biggest mistakes, friends and family and people with new kids can make is when you just isolate yourself in a world where it's just you and your kids and there's nothing else outside of it. Because before that child, you did things that made you feel good. You went to the pub, you went out for a curry, you went to cinema, like you went out for dinners, you travelled. So I think it's so important that if you can from the start, that you still do the things you love, And it is difficult with childcare. I'm lucky I've got my mum nearby, and Rosie's mum, so we can have a dinner and a night out, and we go to the cinema and have a weekend away, and she'll watch the kids and stuff. Like, it's so hard if you don't have that, and I understand that it's difficult. I really would find it hard to leave my kids with someone I didn't know, and I never have, you know what I mean? But having those nights out, those cinema dates, those weekends away, like just hobbies, like going to the gym, or for me, my hobby's motorcycling, and I go on I just went to Spain for 4 days with my mum, my dad and my brother. And Rosie went to Greece with her mum and dad on the holiday. So we try and just make sure that if one's doing something, the other one also has an opportunity to do something. And yeah, I think it's so important, because Otherwise, your world's just your kids, and there's more to it. Like, you need to be happy and spiritually happy in other ways, not just like your kids. But they won't get the best side of you if you're not happy internally with other things.
Yeah, no, of course they won't. The other thing that parents suffer from sometimes that I wanted to ask you about is worrying. Do you worry about the world your children are growing up in? You've spoken to so many different people online and through your socials about different problems that they go through. Do you worry about the things that your children may experience as they grow up?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the things that get me most concerned and worried about is like the climate and the planet and the world. Like, what will it really be like in 50 years' time? Can we sustain it? Like the plastic pollution in the oceans, what will oceans look like? What with the animals and the agriculture and just like the cost of living, and how hard will it be for our kids in the future? So that really worries me. And then the second thing is social media and how that affects our children's body image, physical, physique, like body dysmorphia and anxiety, eating disorders and things, and the pressure that young people experience. Because when I was growing up in 1985, I was born, you just didn't have the pressure of like social media. You just had, your friends and your local friends, and that was all you could compare your life to. Whereas now there's this lens of like perfect lives, perfect bodies everywhere, every minute of the day. And I do really worry, like, how will my kids grow up in that? But I just hope that I can educate them and navigate them through that as best as I can. Because the world's changing so fast, isn't it? And that's the biggest concerns, I think. What will the world look like, and how will our children's mental health be in years to come?
Yeah, being someone whose career is kind of based around social media and someone who's in the public eye as much as you are, it must be a huge worry with the social media side of things. Have you and Rosie talked or planned how you're going to broach the whole subject of social media when your kids are old enough? You have to worry a little bit less at the moment, but as they grow older, with you still working in that industry, you're going to have to plan for it, right?
It's one of those topics that we go back and forth with. We go through phases of like, we're in it. We've already drawn that line. Like, our kids are on social media. We share photos. People know what they look like. They know who they are. And also the other side of just like, I just don't want people to recognise my kids when they're out and treat them differently. And yeah, it is tough. But I crossed that line a while ago. And yeah, it's difficult because I think even if I wasn't on social media with an audience, I just think we all want to share everything. We just want to show our kids looking cute and in little outfits and riding their bikes and things. So I think as a nation, we've all become much more like, we all love sharing stuff, don't we? So I think at the moment I'm okay with them being on there, but there may be a point in time where I say, you know what, like, I need you to have you need to have a decision in this. And if you don't want to be on my social media, you don't want to be recognisable, like that's cool. We can do that. And like, I would never pressure them into it. But yeah, I made that decision, obviously, because I guess I'm so proud of them. I love them. They're such a big part of my life. Like, I've done weaning books and I've done children's workouts, and they come to events and do it. So it's like they're a part of my life and my story. And I've grown from like a single guy to having a wife and kids, and it's like just part of my journey that I've always shared. But maybe there will come a point where I say, you know what, like, today is the last day that you're on my Instagram. I don't know. Who knows? But at the moment, I still share them a little bit.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm down. I'm the same with my kids. I share my kids online as well. What do you think we need to do as parents and as people who are using social media and maybe have a little voice need to do or need to push for in social media so that our kids are in a safer place moving forward? Are there changes you'd like to see implemented? Are there things you'd like to see the government doing to make sure that it's a safer place for our kids moving forward?
I think there's so many layers to this conversation, this question, really, because it's something that has to start at the foundations of home, right? So home life, we are role models, aren't we? So the food we eat, the exercise we do or don't do, your children are picking up on that all the time. They're vibing off you. They're learning from you. So if my kids see me staring at my phone all day, every day, and that's all they know, like, how can I turn around to them and say, you're on your phone too much and you shouldn't be on your device? So we have to really set an example from a young age, I think. And, I really make an effort at dinner. Like, it's easier to give my kids Disney Plus or give them an iPad or an iPhone. But I don't. I work at it. I sit there and I tolerate their annoyingness. And okay, let's read a book. Let's draw some pictures. Let's build some Lego. Like, I do these things at dinner tables so I can still enjoy a meal out and not give them a phone. So it's like, that's an important part. I think what I'm trying to say is delaying their use of screen time as long as possible is a really important thing, I think, because their brains are learning, they're functioning, they're trying to learn about themselves. So to throw them on social media and give them an iPhone at sort of 8, 9, 10 years old, I think is too young. So I'm going to try my best to delay that. And I think with schools as well, you know, I know when I was at school, I had Snake Nokia 3210 and I was on it and I was on it and I loved it. You know what I mean? I loved it. But that was it. I didn't have the internet to search. I wasn't on it in lessons and things. So schools have got to try and work at that. How do they police that? How do they enforce, you know, no phones in lessons, let kids actually learn? But that's a real challenge. But I think, from a government perspective, teach, you know, like we teach about sex education and mental health, I think we should talk about social media, about body dysmorphia, about eating disorders, about anxiety, about how spending all that time on your phone negatively impacts your health. And that should be something that's taught in school because, I mean, what are we're doing way more of that than we are doing math, English and science, aren't we? Like, we are on our phones 24/7. So I think it should be, I just really believe that exercise and mental health should be the most important part of any curriculum. Get your kids healthy and happy and active and moving and cooking and enjoying good food, and get them understanding about social media. Then they're going to go through life a lot happier, I think.
Yeah. Tough question for you. Do you think that two sides of what you do are kind of a little bit opposed to each other? And I'm not trying to, but you've got the fitness and the nutrition and being healthy and staying out, but then you're also an advocate on social media, which is kind of in opposition to that. Do you find that a hard place to be?
Yeah, there's definitely days where, like, I mean, I'm a conflict and I'm a kind of a contradiction, but I still think I've used social media in such a powerful way, like such a positive way. And I think
I agree totally.
I think I try and like I said, I do have an addiction to my phone. But my screen time used to be 8, 9 hours a day. It's now like 3.5, 4. So like that's an amazing leap for me. Sleep. I used to go to sleep 5, 6 hours a night. It wasn't enough. I now talk about sleep and I'm getting 8 hours sleep. So it's like we're always learning. You're never stuck in that same mindset forever. And I think as long as I stay true to the mission, and for me, like, it is about helping people. So I have to share content. I have to do my videos for YouTube and social media. But I'm creating more content and I'm just not consuming as much. I think that was my issue. I was creating but consuming a lot. It's the way the technology is designed. So, you know, like with reels and suggested posts, and it's like you just scroll, don't you? You get drawn in, and I think I'm trying to like snap out of that. So that's where my screen time's come down. I'm still doing the impact work and, you know, contacting them and doing DMs, but I'm not scrolling aimlessly and pointlessly. I'm cutting out. So yeah, it's just trying to keep my own balance and also accept that some days I'm on it more than others, and it's okay. But as long as I'm using it for the greater good, I think I can keep the balance in line, I think.
Yeah. There's something that I personally want to ask you about that you mentioned earlier on. You mentioned the word spiritual. Are you a spiritual person? Do you believe in any ethos or religious system? What's your view?
I went to a Catholic school as a young kid, and we did a lot of, prayers, and I remember doing like mass, and I remember being I was just not engaged and connected with it. But what I've realised as an adult, that I am spiritual, and that my spirituality comes through giving and through love and through kindness and stuff. So I think what I've realised is the more I put out into the world, the more goodness and kindness I give out, the more that comes back. And so I think I'm connected to that feeling of that we are all connected, and the only thing we're connected by is love and compassion. Like, without that, there's nothing, is there? And so yeah, I do think I'm tapping into that, and I think through meditation and through doing mindfulness and kind of breathing and just reading a little bit and certain podcasts and things, I've definitely enlightened myself a little bit. But yeah, that comes with age, I think. Sometimes you're sort of more open to that as you get a bit older, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think because there's no proof for any of the things, it's a situation where you have to find the things that you believe in, find the things that you resonate with, and that becomes your spirituality. So whether that be yoga and fitness, or whether that be Buddhism and, being open to people, whether that be being Christian and following the teachings of the Bible, or whether that be being Muslim and, following the Quran, as long as you believe it yourself and you feel like you're doing good things, that's the main thing. And then the second thing is, as long as you're not hurting other people or trying to tear another system down, I think you're in a good place. Yeah,
no, I definitely agree with that. And I think, yeah, spirituality and kind of higher power can mean so much different people, but I definitely believe there's a higher power. I'm not sure who or what it is, but I do believe that there's a reason that, there's a reason I'm driven and that I'm trying to do more and trying to help people. And it comes from somewhere, I don't know, but it's like, I feel like I'm just a vehicle for the energy, like, and I just push it through and I just share it and stuff. And I think when I realised that, when I tapped into that and I realised that I could really create change and have an impact and help people, like, everything is linked to that. My self-confidence, my self-worth, like what I believe is success is how many people I can help in life. And, where's that come from? I don't know, but I believe it's some kind of higher power, I imagine.
You feel the need, not the need, you enjoy helping people, you want to help people because you're empathetic to the way people are. Has that been since a very, very young age, or did that come later on?
I think as a kid in an environment of like addiction and destruction, and just seeing like your mum and dad like just down and depressed and sad. I didn't know they were depressed and sad, but I could tell there was something wrong. So I think I was naturally a carer. You become a carer because you're protecting someone. I was protecting my dad and my mum and wanting them to be happy. And I thought it was me. Like, is it my fault they're broken up? Is it my fault my dad's taking drugs? Why is my mum unhappy? Like, why is she not here? So yeah, like there's something linked to that, I think, from a young age that made me really care about other people, I think.
Yeah, awesome, dude. Now, like I said earlier on, we get people to send in a couple of questions here and there. And as we're coming to the end of this record, I want to get to these. First one, I think you touched on it a little bit, but we can delve into it a bit more. Danny reads books and stuff sent in this question. He's heard you talking about the difficulties of maintaining calm in certain parenting situations. He would like to know what tips you've picked up, or do you have any resources to help?
Oh, great question, because I really love sharing this book. Her name's Kate Silverton. She used to be a TV presenter, a news reporter. She wrote a book called There's No Such Thing as Naughty. And I read it, and I don't read books. I struggle through, but it was really well written. It talks about, there is no such thing as naughty, because when a toddler, it's basically for the children between like 0 and 5 years old, I think. So it's like the adolescent brain, the young child. And what it taught me is that your child we have a wise owl, like a rational part of our brain, but a child doesn't have that. They have like the baboon, the kind of erratic, like impatient, just screaming tantrums. And so we have to be the wise owl and demonstrate that we can actually regulate our emotions. And that was just a really important thing. Like, it really made me realize that I don't have to scream and shout at my kids. I can take a breath and have a moment to pause rather than the fight or flight. There's fight, flight, and there's breathe for a second and interact and like react differently. So yeah, that book's great. There's podcasts, there's journals, there's websites, there's loads of great accounts. There's an Instagram called Big Small Feelings. It's called Little Big Feelings, I think. And it's like, feelings. Yeah, Little Big Feelings. And it's just like how to kind of interpret situations and respond differently. Because kids, nothing stresses you out more than a toddler pushing your buttons and trying to provoke you and like not doing what you want is so difficult to comprehend. And that is the hardest part. Whereas there's ways of like interacting differently and overcoming it. So yeah, I'd say that was that's my top tip.
Nice. Thank you very much for that. We've got another question here from Talking with a Twin Mum. She says, we know Joe is a very hard-working person. Does he take time off / paternity straight after birth?
I think those early weeks are so important to be with the kids and be present. Obviously, now I've got 2 kids. I've got 1 coming. It's going to be much harder to be, with just 1 child, be focused. So yeah, I'm definitely going to take time off. I'm probably going to block out a few weeks and, I'll still do the odd bit of Instagram and I'll do the odd filming, but I won't be away from the kids. I'll be present and be around and stuff. So, I'm lucky in a sense that I can be at home. Like, I work from home and I get to see the kids and stuff, but I just want to make sure that Rosie, I support her during this time because, with 1 and 2, you've got 1 each, it's easy, right? But with the 3rd, it's going to be much more challenging. So yeah, I think anyone and everyone should take time off and, enjoy those early weeks. Those first couple of weeks are so special, and the cuddles and, they sleep on your chest all the time. I love those moments. So yeah, it's something that I'll be doing for sure.
Awesome. Last question from the public comes from Ben Klupatanon, and he says, Joe speaks openly with his brother about mental health. How did they first approach this with each other, and do they regularly check in? Any tips are welcome.
So my brother Nicky is the CEO of The Body Coach, and he's also like my best friend, and he's the person that has always looked out for me. He was a couple of years older than me from obviously that time during our childhood growing up. It was tough, and he saw and observed a lot more, and all he wanted to do was protect me. So we've got a really close relationship. Yeah, like we check in. Might not be a call. It might be a WhatsApp. We might go for a walk together. But I value relationships so much. I need the closeness. I need to be close to my mum and dad and my brothers and stuff. So I've got a little brother as well who we've just been on a motorcycle trip together with my dad. So we have different things in common where we bond. Like I'm with Nikki, it's kind of with work and with going out for dinner and socialising. With George and my dad, it's more motorcycles and things. And with my mum, we go for walks with the kids and take them out. So I think having your relationships and keeping your families close is really important for overall happiness, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Last question is something we ask all of our guests that come on the podcast, and it is this. Take a moment to think about it. If you could have a dad superpower, what would it be and why?
My superpower would be to be able to understand and communicate with my kids. So, when they're crying. So for example, if they're a toddler having a tantrum screaming, just to be able to read their mind and just quickly tell them everything's okay and just diffuse things. Is that okay to say a superpower?
Dude, you picked the same one as me. I want to give you a fist bump right there for that one.
That's the one. Can you imagine if you could just, what are you crying about? Oh, you want me to give you a cuddle? Oh, okay, here you go. And they stop crying. Or, oh, you've got a poo in your nappy. If you could communicate with a baby on their level, that would be, you'd have a much easier ride.
Wouldn't it?
It'd be amazing.
It'd be so easy. Listen, Joe, I know you're a busy man. You've got to get back to it. Thank you so much for coming here and speaking to me so openly. Keep doing what you're doing. We love it. And hopefully we'll see you along the ride soon. Thank you.
Listen, mate, I've loved our conversation. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. And I appreciate you, wanting to share my story. And hopefully people that are listening have taken some value from it. And just remember, being a dad can be tough, but it's also an amazing journey. And keep working on it. Keep doing all the things that can help you become a better parent. And have a lovely, lovely day with the kids.
Cheers, mate. See you soon.
Thanks, mate.
What a dad. What a guest. A whirlwind. We got through so much stuff. When you're busy, like Joe's busy, you learn how to get through stuff. You might have to listen to that one twice over, guys, to catch all the bits in there. So there you go. Another episode done. But what did you think of it? We would love to know. Leave us a review or a comment on Apple Podcasts or on social media about this episode or the series as a whole. And don't forget, if you want to be first to hear brand new episodes, make sure you subscribe via your preferred podcast platform. To find out more about Dadventures, make sure you head to our website, dadventures.com, where there is information about our live chats, our dad walks, our blog posts, and more. We'll see you soon.